I'm dropping off my 3 kids at midnight. My sister texted your apartment is closer to the airport. The first text came in at 11:47 p.m., when my apartment was quiet in the way only late nights can be. Dishwasher humming, the heater clicking on and off, the street outside washed pale by the parking lot lights. Janelle, your apartment is closer to the airport. That was the whole message. No greeting, no question mark. I stared at it long enough for the screen to dim. Janelle was my older sister by 3 years, and if you asked anyone in our family, the organized one. She had a way of saying things like they were already decided, as if reality took notes from her. I didn't answer immediately. I set my phone face down on the counter and finished wiping it clean, slow circles over the same section of laminate until the last streak vanished. I'd learned that if you respond too fast, you become part of her momentum. At 11:49 p.m., a second text arrived. Janelle, I'm dropping the kids off. Just for a few hours. We have to leave at 4. I picked the phone up again and read it twice. 4 a.m. meant a red-eye or an early international. It also meant she'd been planning this for days, maybe weeks. It meant I wasn't getting asked. I was getting informed. I typed, "Where are you right now?" Then erased it. I typed, "You should have asked earlier." Then erased that too. Instead, I opened my calendar app. My shift at the outpatient imaging center started at 7 a.m. I needed to be in bed by midnight to function like a person. I had 2 patients scheduled for contrast, one anxious, one elderly. The radiologist hated delays. At 11:53 p.m., my building's buzzer rattled. It wasn't the polite single press. It was a long hold, the kind you do when you're sure you're welcome and you want the person inside to know you're already inconvenienced. I walked to the intercom and pressed the button. "Hello?" Her voice came through, breathy and bright like she was on speaker with someone she needed to impress. "Hey, it's us!" Of course it was. I pushed the door release, the lock clicked. The hallway camera by the mailboxes blinked its little red light. I didn't rush. I turned the deadbolt on my apartment door, unlatched the chain, and opened it as the sound of footsteps and rolling wheels climbed the staircase. Janelle appeared first. Hair pulled tight, oversized sunglasses still on her face even though it was midnight. Behind her was her husband Grant, dragging 2 suitcases and a rolling duffel that bumped every step like it was complaining. Then came the children in a cluster, 3 of them sleepy, tangled, carrying a blanket that trailed down the stairs like a banner. Maddie, the oldest at 9, held a tablet pressed to her chest. Carter, 6, had 1 shoe untied and a sticky smear on his cheek, like he'd fallen asleep mid-snack. The baby, Nova, was 2, mostly asleep in Grant's arms with her head tipped back, mouth open. Janelle didn't look at me first. She looked past me, into my apartment, taking inventory. "You're still in that building," she said, like it was a surprise. "I keep telling you, if you just bought a place—" "Hi," I said. She blinked behind the sunglasses and smiled like she'd been reminded she had a face. "Oh, hi, sorry, it's chaos. We're leaving for Cabo." Grant's brother surprised us with this resort thing. It's been insane. Grant nodded once, jaw set, like he was already annoyed to be standing in a hallway. "Hey!" Nova's little hand curled in his shirt, and he adjusted her, careful not to wake her. Whatever else Grant was, he was steady with the baby. Janelle breezed past me. Not walked, breezed. Her perfume reached my living room before she did. She set her toad on my couch without asking and flipped on the lamp like she lived there. Maddie followed, quiet and polite. Carter lingered in the doorway, looking at me like he wasn't sure if he was in trouble. I stepped aside and closed the door behind them. Janelle was already talking. "We just need you to keep them until like 7 or 8. We'll be back Sunday night. Maybe late, but you'll be asleep then, so Monday morning tops." "Sunday," I repeated. Her mouth twitched. "Well, yeah. The flight's at 4:50. We have to be there at 3. You know how airports are, and your place is closer, so it just makes sense." Grant wheeled the suitcases in, parked them by my entryway as if he was setting down mail. "We'll grab them on the way back," he said. I looked at the luggage. 2 suitcases. A duffel. That wasn't a quick business trip. That was vacation. Janelle snapped open her phone with manicured nails. "I'll send you their schedule. Maddie has dance Monday at 5, Carter has soccer Tuesday, and Nova takes her nap at—" "Janelle," I said, not loud, just steady. "It's almost midnight." She turned her head like she'd forgotten time existed. Exactly. That's why we couldn't do this earlier. We've been packing. And the sitter canceled. Like, literally last minute. It was a familiar phrase in our family, last minute, used as a magic wand to turn poor planning into everyone else's responsibility. I wasn't close with their sitter situation. I didn't even know they had one, but I knew Janelle. If she'd booked a sitter, she would have posted about it. She posted about everything. Grant cleared his throat. We're really in a bind. His eyes stayed on the suitcases. He didn't look at the kids. Maddie stood near my bookshelf, still holding the tablet. Hi, Auntie, she said softly. Hi, Maddie, I replied. I met her eyes first. Are you okay? She nodded. But it was the kind of nod kids give when they're used to adults deciding things. Carter finally crossed into the living room. Can I watch TV? He asked. Not tonight, Janelle said automatically, not looking at him. They just need to sleep. It's late. Nova stirred in Grant's arms, made a small sound, and he bounced her gently. Janelle turned back to me. You're not doing anything. You don't have kids. It's not like... I waited. I let her finish the thought in her own head. She didn't. She just spread her hands as if the conclusion was obvious. I kept my voice flat. I have work at 7, and you work like 10 minutes away. She smiled, sharp. You'll be fine, she said. You'll be fine the way people say. You'll get over it. I walked to the kitchen counter where my phone sat and picked it up. The lock screen showed the time, 12:02 a.m. Under it, the missed buzzer notification from the building system. I didn't say no, not yet, not in the hallway with 3 kids who didn't need to feel like luggage. Instead, I said, do they have school tomorrow? Janelle waved a hand. Maddie's doing remote this week. Carter's teacher is chill. We already told them it's a family trip. She hadn't told me, but she told the school. Grant shifted and finally met my eyes. We really appreciate it, he said, but his tone carried the same assumption as hers. This was already done. Al walked back toward the door, clapping her hands lightly like she was wrapping up a meeting. Okay, so we'll just go. They know you. They'll be asleep. Maddie can help with Nova if she wakes up. Their bags are in the car. I'll bring them up in a second. Their bags are in the car? I asked. Janelle paused, annoyed. Yes, diapers, pajamas, stuff. I'll grab it. It's fine. She stepped into the hallway, tapping on her phone. Grant followed with one of the suitcases, then stopped. He glanced at the kids like he wanted to say something, then didn't. Maddie stayed very still, watching me carefully. Go wash your face, I told Maddie. You know where the bathroom is. She nodded and walked down the short hall without arguing. Carter hovered. Can I have water? Yes, I said. Sit at the table. I poured him water in one of my plain glass cups and handed it to him. He drank like he'd been walking for miles. I kept my hands busy. Busy hands made it easier to keep my face neutral. Janelle reappeared a minute later with 2 backpacks and a plastic bag. She tossed them onto my chair like they were groceries. Then she reached into her tote and pulled out a folded paper. Here, she said, and put it on my counter. It was a printed itinerary. Flight numbers? Hotel name. Confirmation codes. Not a last-minute scramble. Not a sitter cancellation. A plan! My eyes moved over the page without changing expression. Cabo. 4 nights. 2 adults. Janelle adjusted her sunglasses on her head and finally looked directly at me like she expected gratitude. See? It's all set. We'll be out of your hair before you know it. Who's picking them up Sunday? I asked. She laughed. The kind that sounded like she'd been waiting for the chance. You are, obviously. We get in at 11:30 p.m. We'll be exhausted. And you'll already have them, so... You said you'd grab them on the way back, I reminded her, still calm. Grant's mouth tightened. He shifted his weight, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Janelle's smile flattened. Don't do this right now, okay? We're stressed. We're trying to make this work. The word "this" meant her trip, not the kids. I nodded once, as if I accepted the explanation. Okay. Her shoulders loosened, like she'd won. Thank you, seriously. You're the only one who can do this without making it a whole thing. That was another family tactic, praise that sounded like a compliment but functioned like a leash. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. "And don't mention this to Mom tonight. She'll freak out, and then she'll call me, and I don't need that energy before a flight." So my mother didn't know. That told me everything I needed to know about how last minute this really was. "Okay," I said again. Janelle leaned in to kiss my cheek. Her lips barely touched skin. It was a performance gesture. Then she was at the door, already dialing someone. Grant followed. They moved quickly, confident that the handoff was complete. At the threshold, Janelle turned back, phone held up in front of her like a mirror. She angled it toward the living room. "Wave, kids," she called. Carter lifted his hand obediently. Maddie didn't come out of the bathroom. Nova was asleep. Janelle smiled into her screen, whispered something I couldn't hear, and the camera flash popped. A second later, I heard the familiar notification sound of her posting. She didn't say goodbye to me as a person. She said it to her audience. "Okay, love you," she sang, and then she and Grant were gone, footsteps fading down the stairs, wheels clacking behind them. My apartment settled into silence again, but it was a different silence now, occupied, heavier. I walked to the door and slid the chain back into place. Then I looked down at the printed itinerary on my counter. The paper had a crease where Janelle had folded it, but the ink was crisp. Booking dates, names, costs, and tucked beneath it, half hidden under the plastic bag she'd tossed, was an envelope with my name printed on the front in Janelle's handwriting. Not my nickname. Not Sis. My full legal name, like a document. I stared at it for a moment, then picked it up carefully, as if it might spill something. Inside the apartment, Carter's cup clinked softly against the table as he set it down. "Auntie?" he called, small voice. I set the envelope on the counter without opening it yet. "I'm here," I answered. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a notification. Janelle had tagged me in a story. The preview showed my hallway light, my open door, and the caption in her rounded script, "Late night drop-in aunties because she's so close to the airport I guess wash #blessed #family help." I looked at the screen, then at the envelope, then down the hall where Maddie was washing her face in my bathroom like she belonged here. I didn't react. I didn't comment. I didn't call. I just unlocked my phone, took a screenshot of the tagged story, and saved it to a folder I'd created months ago for a different reason. A folder named, simply, Receipts. Then I picked up the envelope again, turned it over, and slid my finger under the flap. Whatever Janelle had left on my counter, it wasn't a thank you. And the timing, midnight, right before a flight, wasn't an accident. I opened it slowly without tearing anything, and pulled out the first page. At the top, in bold, was a title I hadn't seen in years. Emergency Temporary Guardianship Authorization. My name was already typed in, and so was my signature line. Blank, waiting. I stood there in my kitchen at 12:11 a.m. holding paperwork that made my stomach go quiet, while 3 children slept in the next room like this was normal. In the hallway outside my door, Janelle's footsteps were long gone, but her plan was sitting on my counter, in black ink, and I still didn't say a word. The kids were asleep by 12:43 a.m. Not peacefully, not easily, but asleep. Nova woke twice, confused and crying for her mother. Small fists clenched in my shirt like she thought if she held tight enough, Janelle would reappear. Carter wet the bed, something he clearly hadn't done in a while, judging by the way he froze when he realized. Maddie stayed awake the longest, sitting on the edge of the couch with her tablet dark eyes fixed on nothing. I didn't scold. I didn't rush. I changed sheets, ran the washer on a quiet cycle, warmed milk, read the same short picture book twice. I spoke softly, kept my tone even. By the time the apartment finally went still, it was 1:38 a.m. Only then did I sit back down at the kitchen counter. The envelope was still there. I washed my hands first, dried them, sat straight in the papers. The document was 3 pages long. Official letterhead, notarization block at the bottom, the kind of form you don't download casually. Emergency Temporary Guardianship Authorization. Effective dates, Friday, 12 a.m., Tuesday, 11:59 p.m., 4 days. Not a few hours. Not until morning, 4 days. Typed cleanly, like this had always been the plan. The section labeled Reason for Temporary Transfer was filled in with practiced neutrality. Parents traveling internationally. Authorized guardian available and consenting. Consenting. My name appeared 6 times. Full legal name, address, phone number. Below that, a line, guardian signature, JMSA, blank. Below that, another line already signed, Janelle R. Grant M., dated 2 days earlier. I leaned back in my chair and let the silence sit. She hadn't needed my permission to bring them over. She needed my signature to make it legal after the fact. If something happened, if Maddie fell and broke an arm, if Carter got sick, if Nova needed urgent care, this document would decide whether I could act or whether everything stalled. Hospitals didn't care about family dynamics. They cared about paper, and Janelle knew that. I didn't sign it either. Instead, I took my phone and photographed every page. Front, back, close-ups of the dates and signatures. Then I placed the papers back into the envelope exactly as I'd found them. Edges aligned, crease smoothed. I slid the envelope into my desk drawer, underneath my old tax folders. Then I opened the folder on my phone labeled Receipts and added a new subfolder. Janelle Kids inside it. I moved the screenshot of her Instagram story. I labeled it with the date and time. Friday, 12:06 a.m. I didn't know yet what I was collecting for. I just knew better than to rely on memory. At 5:12 a.m., my alarm went off. I turned it off immediately, already awake. My body felt heavy, but my head was clear. That was always the pattern with me. Stress didn't make me frantic. It made me precise. I checked my phone. No messages from Janelle. No updates. No "we landed" or "thank you again." Just a repost from her story. Someone had replied with laughing emojis and "best aunt ever." I didn't respond. I got the kids ready. Maddie logged into her virtual classroom at 8:15, camera off, headphones on. Carter sat at my small kitchen table with worksheets I printed from his school's website after finding the login buried in an old email Janelle had once forwarded me, just in case. Nova napped on and off, disoriented but manageable. At 9:03 a.m., my phone buzzed. Janelle. "Can you send me a pic of them?" Grant's mom is asking. I took a photo of the kids' backs, not faces. Maddie at her laptop, Carter coloring, Nova asleep on the couch. I sent it without comment. Seconds later, I watched the image appear on Janelle's public story, cropped tighter, captioned, "Missing these 3 already. Go thankful for family." No mention of asking me. No mention of duration, just optics. At work that afternoon, between patients, I logged into my computer and pulled up Janelle's social media accounts. Public posts, stories, tagged photos. I didn't scroll emotionally. I scrolled methodically. I took screenshots of her post from 2 weeks earlier announcing surprise getaway, loading Piana. A comment where someone asked, "Who's watching the kids?" and she replied, "All handled cock." A story highlight labeled Cabo with a hotel name clearly visible. I saved everything with timestamps. At 4:47 p.m., my mother called. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hi, Mom." Her voice was tight. "Why didn't you tell me Janelle left the kids with you?" "I didn't know she'd tell you yet," I said. "She just posted pictures from Mexico," my mother said. 4 days. She said you were happy to help. "I didn't say I was unhappy," I replied, which was true. My mother sighed. "You always do this. You never say anything, and then things get complicated." "I'm managing," I said. "The kids are fine." That seemed to settle her. It always did. In our family, competence was treated like consent. After dinner, Maddie came into the kitchen while I was washing dishes. "Auntie," she said quietly, "Mom said we were only staying 1 night." "I didn't stop scrubbing. What did she tell you after that?" Maddie hesitated. "That plans change, and that you don't mind because you don't have your own kids." There it was. I turned the water off and faced her. "Did she say that to you?" Maddie nodded once. "She said you like quiet, and that we wouldn't be loud." I handed her a towel. "Go, get ready for bed. I'll read tonight." She didn't smile, but her shoulders dropped a little when she walked away. At 10:26 p.m., Janelle finally texted again. "Janelle, everything okay?" "Janelle, we're having trouble with Wi-Fi at the resort." "Janelle, can you also take Maddie to dance Monday?" "I forgot to cancel." I read the messages. Put the phone down. "Counted to 10. Then I opened my notes app and began a timeline. Friday, 11:47 p.m., initial text. Your apartment is closer to the airport. Friday, 12:02 a.m., children dropped off. No end date disclosed. Friday, 12:06 a.m., public Instagram story tagging me. Friday, 12:11 a.m., guardianship paperwork discovered. Friday, 5:12 a.m., no follow-up from parents. Saturday, 9:04 a.m., children posted publicly without consent. I kept it factual. No adjectives, no opinions. On Sunday afternoon, while the kids played quietly, I opened my desk drawer again and took out the envelope. This time, I read the fine print. The authorization required notarization after guardian signature. Without my signature, it was incomplete. But the presence of their signatures dated earlier meant intent. I scanned the document into my computer, saved it as a PDF. Then I checked the metadata on the file. Janelle had emailed herself the form originally. The creation date was 10 days ago. 10. She hadn't planned this last minute. She'd planned it before she booked the flights. That was the key receipt, not the social media, not the text messages. The document itself, created 10 days earlier, signed 2 days earlier, delivered at midnight, under pressure, proved premeditation. I sat there for a long time after discovering that, listening to Nova breathe softly in the other room. I didn't confront Janelle. I didn't ask for explanations. Instead, I emailed the scanned document to myself, printed 2 copies and placed one in a folder labeled Legal. Then I opened my calendar and circled Sunday night. Because Janelle was coming back, and she was going to expect everything to reset the moment she walked through my door. She had no idea that by trying to make this easy, she'd handed me something that would never be quiet again, and I was still waiting. Janelle landed at 11:34 p.m. on Sunday. I knew because she posted the arrival board before the plane reached the gate. A shaky video of the screen, flight number circled with a white heart, captioned, Homie, Ho, Sammy. I didn't comment. I didn't like it. I just saved the story and added it to the folder. The kids were asleep by then. Maddie had insisted on packing her backpack so Mom won't be mad. Carter had fallen asleep on the couch halfway through a movie he wasn't really watching. Nova was already down, thumb in mouth, curls damp from her bath. At 11:46 p.m., my phone rang.
I let it ring. At 11:47, it rang again.
At 11:48, a text. Janelle, we're here! Janelle, can you bring them down? We're exhausted. I looked at the message, then at the kids through the cracked bedroom door. 3 bodies finally still, I replied once. Me. They're asleep. You can come up. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Janelle, seriously? We just got off a flight.
Janelle? It's late. I set the phone down.
At 11:56 p.m., the buzzer rattled. Long press. Impatient. I walked to the intercom and pressed the button.
Yes. Open the door? Janelle said, no greeting.
Her voice sounded clipped, like she was already irritated I hadn't anticipated her. I buzzed them in. I didn't rush. I unlocked my door and waited, arms loose at my sides, expression neutral. The hallway camera blinked again as they climbed the stairs, suitcases bumping just like before, only this time faster, angrier. Janelle came in first, already talking. This was a nightmare. The flight was delayed, the line at customs was insane, and Nova probably missed her routine. I hope you kept her on schedule. Hi, I said. She paused, blinked, then smiled thinly.
Hi.
Grant followed, dragging luggage, eyes on the floor. He looked worn, tired in the way that came from more than travel. Where are the kids? Janelle asked, scanning the living room. Asleep, I said. Her mouth tightened. We need to get them home. It's midnight, I replied. They're settled. She exhaled sharply.
I don't want to wake them at home.
I didn't respond. I just waited. Grant shifted. Maybe we can carry Nova and let the others sleep here and pick them up in the morning? Janelle shot him a look. No, I want them home. She turned back to me.
Can you wake Maddie and Carter gently?
I nodded. In the morning.
Her eyes widened. Excuse me? I have work at 7, I said calmly. They have school. You can come back at 8. The silence stretched. This is ridiculous, she said finally. You knew we were coming tonight. Yes, I agreed. So why are you making this difficult? I didn't answer that. I stepped aside, leaving the door open behind them.
Janelle walked in further, heels clicking too loudly on my floor.
Maddie, she called, stage whisper that wasn't quiet at all. Sweetie, wake up. I didn't stop her. Maddie stirred, confused, eyes squinting at the light. Carter followed, sitting up, hair sticking up at the back, Nova cried when she heard voices. Within seconds, all 3 kids were awake, disoriented, clinging. Janelle scooped Nova up, already bouncing. It's okay, baby. Mommy's here.
Carter started crying, rubbing his eyes.
I'm tired.
I know, Janelle said, distracted. She looked at me over Nova's head. See? Now they're all upset. Grant picked up the suitcases again. Let's just go. I handed Maddie her backpack. You packed this already. She nodded, eyes glassy. As they gathered everything, Janelle turned to me again, her voice suddenly syrupy. Thank you. Really, I don't know what we would have done without you. I met her gaze. We'll talk tomorrow. She froze. About what? I didn't elaborate. Get home safe. They left in a flurry of noise and complaints and half-zipped bags. When the door closed behind them, the apartment felt hollow. I locked the chain. Then I sat down. At 12:31 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Janelle, that was unnecessary. Janelle, you embarrassed me in front of Grant. Janelle, we'll talk when you calm down. I didn't reply. Monday morning passed in a blur of work. At lunch, I checked my email. There it was. A message from Janelle, subject line in all caps, paperwork. Inside was a single sentence. Can you please sign the guardianship form and send it back? Just for records. Just for records. I forwarded the email to myself, then saved it to the folder. At 6:18 p.m., my mother called again. Janelle says you're upset, she said. I'm not, I replied. She said you're being cold, that you're acting like she did something wrong. I let that sit. Did she mention the paperwork? Silence. What paperwork? My mother asked. I closed my eyes. We'll talk Wednesday. Why Wednesday? Because we'll all be together, I said. My mother frowned through the phone. For what? For Maddie's school open house? I answered. Another pause. What does that have to do with? I'll explain then. Wednesday night was a public event. Parents, teachers, administrators. Janelle had already posted about it. New outfit, proud mom, can't wait to show up. She loved moments like that. Loved being seen as capable, admired, put together. She had no idea she'd scheduled her own audience. I printed the timeline. I printed the guardianship form. I printed the email asking me to sign. I put them in a plain folder. No labels. Then I waited. Because the truth didn't need to chase her. It just needed a room full of witnesses. And on Wednesday night, she was going to walk us all into it herself. The open house started at 6 p.m. I arrived at 5:52. I didn't rush. I parked in the far row, the one without the spotlight pole, and sat for a moment with the engine off. The school was already buzzing, parents in clusters, kids running ahead, teachers propping doors open with laminated signs taped to folding chairs. I carried a plain manila folder under my arm. No labels. No tabs sticking out. Inside were 3 things, in order. The printed guardianship authorization, unsigned by me. The email Janelle sent asking me to sign it, for records. The timeline. Nothing extra. Nothing dramatic. I walked in alone. Maddie's classroom was on the first floor, second hallway on the right, the same place it had been last year. I'd been here before for performances, for conferences, for pickup emergencies when Janelle was running late. Janelle was already there. She stood near the whiteboard, laughing with 2 other mothers, phone in hand, showing them photos from the trip. Her hair was done. Outfit planned. Grant hovered nearby, polite smile fixed, holding a brochure he hadn't read. When Janelle saw me, her smile flickered, just a fraction of a second, then reset. There you are, she said brightly, loud enough for the women beside her to hear. I was wondering if you'd come. I said I would, I replied. She leaned in and lowered her voice. We'll talk later. Not here, I nodded.
Okay,
That seemed to disarm her. She turned back to her audience, already halfway into another sentence about delayed flights and how family really showed up. Maddie spotted me from across the room and came over, quiet as always. She slipped her hand into mine without asking. "I'm glad you're here," she said. "So am I," I replied. At 6:17, her teacher, Mrs. Alvarez, clapped her hands lightly. "Okay, everyone, thank you for coming. We're going to start with a quick overview, and then we'll open the floor for questions." Parents shuffled closer. Phones went down. Janelle moved to the front, still holding Grant's arm, positioning herself where she'd be seen. Miss Alvarez spoke about curriculum, about reading goals, about upcoming projects. Maddie stood beside her desk, calm. Then, Miss Caesar Alvarez smiled. "We also want to thank our families. We know support systems look different for everyone. Parents, guardians, caregivers, it all matters." That was my cue. I raised my hand. Mr. Alvarez nodded. "Yes? I have a question about emergency contacts," I said. My voice carried, but it wasn't sharp. "Just clear!" Specifically temporary guardianship. The room stilled a little. Not fully, but enough. Janelle's head turned slowly.
Miss.
Alvarez blinked. "Of course. What about it?" I opened the folder and removed the first document. I didn't hold it up like evidence. I held it like paper. "Last week," I said, "I was given this form at midnight when 3 children were dropped off at my apartment. It authorizes me as a temporary guardian for 4 days." A murmur moved through the room, not loud. Curious. Janelle laughed softly. "Oh my God," she said, waving a hand. "She's being dramatic." I didn't look at her. "The form was created 10 days before the children were dropped off," I continued, "signed by both parents 2 days before. I was not informed of the duration in advance, nor asked for consent." Miss Alvarez's expression changed. Professional concern replaced polite interest. Grant shifted beside Janelle. "This really isn't the place." "I agree," I said, finally turning toward them. "I didn't choose the place. I chose the timing." Janelle's smile hardened. "Why are you doing this?" I opened the folder again and removed the email. "This was sent Monday morning," I said. "After the trip, asking me to sign retroactively." I handed the papers to Ms. Alvarez, not Janelle. Ms. Alvarez glanced at them, then at Janelle. "Ms. Can you explain this?" Janelle opened her mouth, closed it. Laughed again, too loud. "It was just in case. She's family. We were traveling." Grant looked down. A woman near the back spoke up. "You left them without confirming." Another voice. "At midnight." Miss Alvarez held up a hand. "Let's keep this orderly." I placed the final page, the timeline, on top. "I'm not asking for an apology," I said. "I'm asking that the school update its records to reflect that I am not an emergency or temporary guardian unless explicitly agreed to in advance, in writing."
Silence. Miss.
Alvarez nodded slowly. "That's reasonable." Janelle stared at me like she didn't recognize me. "You didn't have to do this," she said, her voice tight now. "You could have just said no." "I wasn't asked," I replied. Grant finally spoke. "Janelle," she rounded on him. "Don't." Miss Alvarez cleared her throat. "We'll need to involve administration to review this, for the safety of the children." Janelle's face drained of color. "Administration?" she repeated. "This is a misunderstanding." I closed the folder. The documents are clear. The room didn't explode. No shouting, no chaos. But the air shifted. Parents stepped back. Conversations started in low voices. Phones came out, not for photos, but for messages. Janelle grabbed her bag. "We're leaving!" Grant hesitated, then followed her. Maddie squeezed my hand. "Am I in trouble?" "No," I said. "You're not!" Afterward, Ms. Alvarez pulled me aside. "Thank you for bringing this to us calmly. We'll handle it from here." I nodded. That's all I wanted. That night, my phone lit up. Texts from my mother. From an aunt. From Janelle. 5 messages in a row, none of them calm. I didn't answer. 2 days later, Janelle posted a vague update about boundaries and being misunderstood. Comments were limited. Grant stopped liking her posts. A week after that, my mother came over with groceries she hadn't asked me if I needed. "You should have told me," she said, not unkindly.
"I tried,"
I replied. She nodded.
"I see that now. I never signed the form."
I was removed from the school's emergency contact list at my request. Janelle had to submit new paperwork, this time in person, with questions. She stopped asking me for last-minute help. When she did text weeks later, it was different. "Can you watch the kids Saturday from 2 to 6? If not, that's okay." I waited an hour before replying. "No, but thank you for asking." That was the end of it. Not a victory, not a reconciliation, just clarity. My apartment is still close to the airport, but it's no longer a landing zone.